Hi, thank you for coming today. We're going to welcome to INSTAR Square. Here we do every day at 5 o'clock events regarding art, activism, and political art and social art, mainly related to Cuba, and the work we do in INSTAR, which is mainly in Cuba. Today we have a great guest, which is Henriette Hernández. We know him as Henriette only. So Henriette Hernández, who is an artist by training and also a thinker and researcher. And today we're going to talk about a book project that we did for Documenta that is going to come out in October. Okay, now we have decided to speak in English, so perfect. So we're going to speak in English today. Well, we're going to, first of all, when we were invited to Documenta, we saw that the first and maybe hardest challenge was how can we transcribe what is happening in Cuba to people who actually have been under the spell of propaganda for 60 years. When you say the word Cuba, everybody imagine, what do you imagine? Beach, rum, happy people, but that's only propaganda. That's not the true life of Cubans. And I always say that sometimes Cubans laugh not to show their tears. So it's not because they are happy, but because they don't want to show their tears to others, because they are proud. So basically, the big challenge we had when we decided to do a book for this experience of Documenta, INSTAR in Documenta, was precisely how to create a context for people who are going to see the work. So I call Henriette, an old colleague of mine, and we start thinking about this. ¿Tú quieres empezar a...? No.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tania, for inviting me to talk here about this anthology. So yeah, we start to talk about the idea of the anthology. So we decided together when we were the last time in Havana in March of 2021. Yeah. Put together some different wave or of think around Cuba intelligentsia or intellectual elites from people from that think from the anthropology field or sociology and cultural history and art critique And this kind of way of think. And the idea was put in discussion, extend this kind of discussion between the relationship around independent practice in Cuba and that we call it autonomy of thinkers of discursive. No, is one of this kind of point. And the idea was talk or discuss from cinema what is happening in Cuba in the last 30 or 40 years with the independent cinema, with the independent artistic practices, or independent journalism, or yeah, the music and visual artists, politics also. So we were, because the point in Cuba is that this kind of political opposition to the Cuban government is not legal. Or so, and in this case, many artists or many intellectuals get these two roles in the society. So to do some intellectual work, but at the same time displaying this kind of opposition or political role or political opposition to the Cuban government. So the idea, as I can, so, as I said before, was put in discussion for the first time in the Cuban context this controversial situation. No, so what is happening with the independent practice, and what happened is if you go, how can I say, in frontal, no? Yeah, when you talk directly to the government, no, like a shocking to the situation, no. So this is
Well, you
what
touched
it,
very few points that we discussed because when we first got together, the original idea was okay, we need some context for what we're doing here to, to dismantle the propaganda. But then in the process, we realized that it was not only that we're going to have different chapters, like you say, on music, different practices. I think they're going to be showing the book is finished. It just need to be printed. So we have not only the different, like for example, chapters about the different practices, not only art practices, but also, like you say, politics. We have one chapter dedicated to feminism in Cuba, which I personally learned a lot from reading the essay, because the government has erased many of the history prior to the revolution. So not only that, but we realize in the process of trying to showcase the movement of independent art in Cuba and to have the argument that not only it exists, but it's a strong, it has a long history. In the process, we discovered that also right now we have a very strong independent academic thinking body of people who are doing the doctorate in Mexico, in Spain. ¿Dónde era? ¿Cómo?
yeah, yeah, it's yeah, very. There are a group of that we call it independent thinkers, but many Cuban people that are living in the United States, around Latin America and Europe, and they are teaching at the university and also get grades, PhD and stuff in different universities. So we have been in the last maybe 10 years revising, this the critiques, yeah, the discourse and the critiques, like cultural critiques and artistic critiques, and I think it's good because for the first time we can to revise the Cuban discourse, producing inside and outside Cuba, and I think it's a good point also in this book. And the other point on this book, we have two chapters. One of these from written by Suzette Sanchez about Cátedra de Conducta, the pedagogical project created by Tania. But the point is that Suzette talk is like a transfer, no, from the criteria of Cátedra de Conducta to INSTAR, that this is the the independent institution or group or project that we are watching today this project. And the other point is the chapter written by Giselle Arce about Movimiento San Isidro. So I mentioned these two projects because I think are the two most how can I say strongest project in the Cuban independent war or artistic war. And at the same time, these two projects have this kind of cultural work, but at the same time has created some social controversial around Cuban context. And I think it's really important because this is one of the maybe one of the point of view to see also what is happening with the 27 movement or 27 community, or we can say also what is happening with July 11, more or less. Yeah, I think there are two artistic and social project, independent project in Cuba that has working like how do you say catapulta or something, no? You know, to
But also we cannot talk about independent art projects in Cuba without talking about all the social movement that is happening in Cuba, like you're saying, because many times the art that is produced is either in reaction or by inspiration of this. But I wanted to touch another point. Not only we wanted, it was very clear that we wanted that everybody who write in the book is Cuban, and you were very talk a little bit about why that. And the other thing is, we were talking about it's not about being independent; it's about being autonomous. So we had this. You want to talk more about that?
yeah, I think that maybe in the last third year, we have maybe accepted at the same time suffering this kind of Cubanisms or, many, yeah, Cubanistas or Cubanismo that
Cubanologos.
yeah, but I love this Fernando Ortiz criteria from 1939 about Cubanismos or Cubanistas. These people that get studying Cuba for 30 or 40 or 50 years, and for the first time, we were thinking, what happened with this book is we can write all together this book, and we can think all together this book, and we can put in discussion our problems, our situation, and we can to produce, this book together. No, I think pay the fees, the design, the criteria, and I think it's really important because now I think that many Cubanistas from the United States or from Europe or from Latin American are in silence, when maybe in the last 4 or 3 years they are getting silence. They don't want to talk about Cuba. And the most important point is that they don't want to get in discussion with us, in around the Cuban problem
Because
that we say, no?
I think. Hola, hola. Hola? No, I think it's because reality doesn't fit their theories, you know. And this is why, and we really were very, very adamant to have us talking about our own reality instead of somebody else defining who we were. Dame, voy a cambiarle no, pero está bien, está bien.
Yeah, yeah, because there are situations in Cuba, in these independent practices, that not all of these independent practices talk directly to the government. And when you don't talk directly to the government, you can do what you want to do in your project. There are two points or two political points that are really, really, how do you say, repressive or castigado, ¿no? For the government, no punishment, no, for the government. When you talk against the government, and when you talk against to the big leader, you know, to the big chief. So, but at the same time, every point in Cuban life are political points, or at the end, you go against the government in different ways, no? So, and I think it's important, and this is one of the points that many of these independent places in Cuba don't say, or they say, well, I am get involved in this political statement or political project or something, no? And I think it's also one of these point to talk in this book, no?
Um, hola, hola. ¿Se oye? ¿Me oye? Ah, es que tienes que subirlo. Tienes que subirlo un poquito, un poquito, un poquito, un poquito, ¿no? No, ahora sí. Eh, so, so basically, the other thing that we wanted to say is like in terms of the design, and if Chris can put the images of the book, we conceived this exhibition in Kassel as an exhibition of facsimile. So even if we have original work, we always want to give this idea of facsimile, no, the reproduction. So Claudia Patricia is the designer of the book. We can change the pages and flip it, the pages. So she basically did something very beautiful, which is she put in the middle this kind of effect that when you see the two pages together, it almost feels like you have done a photocopy to the book, you know, the little effect. And basically, we also decided not to have many images. We wanted to be more text related with some minimal examples. And we also going to have, it's like a, hopefully we can do like a box. So this is the context, the book of context, and then we will have next to it a catalog with the 11 shows we are doing here during documenta. So yeah, this is more or less what we have.
Yeah, the other point of the book is the the note of the title. Um, Another, yeah, Otras cartas sobre la mesa. There were a book from the beginning of the 90s, I think. Yeah, it was a book written by Armando Hardávalos, the first Cuban Minister of Culture. Um, and it was a book, how do you say, the rules of the table is the original title, the Cuban political culture, no?
The title of the original book in Spanish is
Cartas sobre la mesa.
Cartas sobre la Mesa, so it's like the cards on the table, so
Yeah,
everything is
yeah,
clear,
yeah.
no?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
And it was the political, the policy, the cultural policy
in revolutionary
in
Cuba, something,
revolutionary Cuba. So it
something like.
was what they use in the Ministry of Culture to decide what is right and what is wrong, no? Basically.
Yeah, and the idea was put another card on the table. So we the idea is to put in question and make some question, not to this book, uh, but also to this political culture in Cuba that has been uh, basically the same in the last 60 years, with like a, repressive political culture. So what you can say or what you cannot say against the Cuban revolution. So it is why we put this title, no? Another cards on the table, independent practices and autonomy, the discursive in Cuban culture.
We also invited Hamlet Labastida to do the design of each of the chapter, like the separation of the chapter. And for this, he used the same image you see here in the mural, which is it is the floor plan of Villa Marista, which is the headquarter of the Minister of Interior. Let's say intelligence, and this is where they bring you to for some interrogations, etc. And they have prisons there. Ironically, he did this project before, and then when he arrived to Cuba, he was put in that prison for 3 months. Yeah. Ah, sí, sí, sí. No, yeah, we decided to do also to make a bilingual book, like English Spanish, because we find out. I mean, we decided in the process that part of the problem we're having in Cuba is that all the news are in Spanish. So we Cubans know what's going on, and we are sensitive to others' situation. And for example, we know Cubans that, let's say, a week ago, there were some mothers who came with their kids into the highway to stop the cars because they wanted to talk to the president because they could not handle it anymore, and so on. This we know. We know all the story of what is happening, but nobody outside is knowing this. So we decided that one of the maybe the weaknesses, no, of all this is that it's not in English. So we decided to put it in English to start having this conversation internationally, not only among us, no? And in part is because we do need the solidarity of other people in order to go on, no, with demanding our rights.
Yeah, well, the book will be published on October. I don't know about INSTAR editorial project. You can say something about that. I think it's important.
Bueno, we in INSTAR, we after we finish documenta, because this is huge what we're doing here, uh, we are um, we are working on opening next year an editorial project, and we have already two projects. The first one is this book. The second one, we're going to do it with Davide Omni and Omar Perez, which is one of the great poets that we have. And they're going to do a sound book because he's a poet and we want him to record the readings. And he does in a very particular way. He was here until today, actually. He left today. Um, and we also want through this editorial project to rescue. In one side we want to rescue some artists from the past that has been censored and see if we can find the work and reprint it or make it available. And also we want to have a line, editorial line, that is academic, because we think it's very important I mean, we have a big generation of a huge generation of thinkers, and to actually start going to the academic world, because these are the people who study us and tell us who we are, you know. So it would be good for them to have some sort of bibliography they have to consult the next time they talking about us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Bueno,
Yes.
that's all we have
Thank
today.
you for coming. So it is a little brief about the
If you have
anthology.
any question about
Yeah, it's
anything
okay. It's okay.
related to the
Have any
book,
question?
the project here, anything, you're welcome.
So we've done the progress, but it is important to do this kind of brief or as presentation.
Thank you both. I wonder if you could say just a little bit more about the idea of the facsimile and how, and the if you thought about it, what a facsimile is differently across the text and also the installations.
Well, since we wanted to, tengo que mover esto para allá porque since we wanted to yeah, sí. Gracias, Julia. Since we wanted to kind of work and use documenta, to be honest, to give some visibility to artists who have been censored and obscured and erased. We wanted to use this moment also to kind of try to start this something that INSTAR has done for the last 4 or 5 years, which is create some sort of archive or reconstruction of archive through oral history, because unfortunately Cuba is not. It's very bureaucratic, but it doesn't leave a lot of traces, and it's hard, to have documents. We didn't want to have here an exhibition based on the document, in part because the main violations done in Cuba are not registered, and this is in purpose, so there is no trace. But also, we understood that reconstructing the history of independent art in Cuba and independent thinking in Cuba uh, is an incomplete job, because even we put here 267 censor artists, and the other day we received a note from an artist who lives in Berlin, actually, Amir Bayes, who is an amazing poet, and he say, "Oh, I'm not in the list." And he sent why everything that happened to him, and the same with another artist who sent, so we understand that what we're doing here will be always incomplete, because in purpose it was dynamitated, it was made forgotten. So we're trying to, like, coming back from amnesia, social and political amnesia. So in that sense, we wanted to avoid the idea of anything original, because we didn't want fetishism. We wanted conversation about the politics in Cuba. We didn't want to fetishize any person or any moment in the history. We wanted people to understand that this has been a progressive and constant, persistent oppression for artists and people who think or want something different from the government. So that's what we like, the idea of facsimile, because it takes away the pressure, metaphorically, but also physically, of of something of value, no?
I'll just make a remark. I think it's really great that you have this bilingual book. I'm come from France, and we have exactly the same problem that you described, which is there is no information about what is happening in Cuba in French. So the existence of one book made by academics and recognize them is very important, because today when we're looking for a book about Cuba in France, and you take and you type Cuba on Amazon, on you name it, you have only books from pro-Cuban government associations and this kind of stuff. And it's really important to have now more and more information from Cuba on what's happening in English also. But even we have the same problem in French, and we're trying to do the same, addressing French people in their language, to have this kind of document. So really, really great for you.
No, but also we need to understand that the Cuban government devotes a lot of money to propaganda, and part of that propaganda is to translate their propaganda. So you can find books in many languages: Vietnamese, Chinese, Spanish, English, French, Portuguese. And these books are produced in Cuba by the government and sent to other countries, so it is a big disadvantage, no? And I think we need people to be. I think what happens, it's very hard when we come in places like this. I'm from the left, and people don't expect me to criticize, or don't expect us to criticize this paradise. But the thing is, I think the big problem we have now is the distance. We need to shorten the distance between what people know and how people are feeling about us, and what we know and we feel. I think it's big distance now, and we need to find ways to and I think language is quite, and it's hard. Sometimes people don't want to hear it, and it has happened to all of us, in academic venues, or even in exhibitions, and it's like, why you are, they make you feel bad, dirty about your own personal story, so I think this is important to somehow share.
Yeah, and the other point is that there are a lot of books, for example, in relation to visual arts in Cuba during the 90s. There were published a lot of books in English, but um, these books or catalogs uh, not point on discussion, or put on discussion several problems, that that we are talking now, but there were problems that exist during the 90s, no? And it is important in two directions. Revise, o sea, make a revision of this text, o sea, what this college were this discussion during the 90s, and why and what not, and what we can say about these problems or practices, critical practice also, and I think it's really important because there are some criteria, around Cuban art, for example, that are from the 90s, not from today, and it is really important for us also. And it is really interesting that these books were producing or paying from basically from museums or galleries or universities from the United States, from Germany, from Spain, but and the editor or curators or Cuba or not Cuba, Germany or Spaniard, wherever, uh, in so many times they were saying, so you can say that or you cannot say that. So, and it is really important now that we get this kind of autonomy, to produce and to think, and it's really important for us. So it is maybe some decolonizing process for us, no, and also for our Cuban college also. So that many of them are getting silenced now. So they don't want to talk about what is happening with San Isidro, what is happening in 27 movement or community, and so they want to talk about Cuban independent movement. So and I think it's really important in this point.
And also it's not so clean, it's not so, you cannot do a clean cut because, for example, there is a lot of things at risk people have when they start talking about this. They can put themselves in risk, they can put their family in risk, they can be asked to leave the country, like many recently. But also it's not a fantasy story, where you have heroes and demons. It's complex with this list of censored intellectuals in Cuba. We had a moment where we had to stop and say, do we put this person or not? Because there is a person in the list that, yes, was censored, the work was erased from Cuban culture, but more recently, this person is older, and now the government is trying to co-opt this person and to bring it back. And now this censored artist is censoring other people. So it's not so easy sometimes to be like, oh, we are the good people because we were censored. They are horrible. It is very complicated because the censorship in Cuba is different from the rest of the world. The censorship exists everywhere, but it's different because it's a totalitarian action. Why? Because it's in other countries you can say, okay, my work is not in this gallery because I was censored, whatever, but then you can do it in your house, in another gallery, or in another museum. In Cuba, when you do something that is uncomfortable for the government, you are closed. Like they don't let you exhibit anymore. They start telling you you're not an artist. And this is not enough for them. It's not enough for them to erase you, but they could start putting pressure on your family. And they start, then all of a sudden your mother has problems in the job, and they start demanding her stuff differently. Like, so it's like the cards are, a house of cards, where everything crumbles because, yeah, they enter all the areas. They want to suffocate you. The punishment is because how dare you? That's the relationship they want to establish. How dare you? Doesn't matter what you're talking about. Doesn't matter how you say it. Doesn't matter if they know sometimes that you don't want to harm them. That what you want is to do a critique because you sometimes even believe in the system and just want them to change. Doesn't matter. It's just the action of how dare you to do this. No. So I think it's a complex situation, but even with this, in the book you will see the history of also all of these movements and how how they had to fight for their autonomy, but also is interested that in the book we can see somehow the relationship with the institutions, because in some cases there is a chapter by Hilda Landrove. She's talking how she from inside the institution tried to challenge things, how to change certain things and how to stop things to happen, no? But unfortunately at the end, you know it's too
Yeah,
much that she
yeah,
had to leave
because
the
I think
institution.
that it is a very old, like a old communist dream or old conservative dream for communist people that you imagine that you can think to change the institution from the deep or something. No, yeah, so yeah, where when you get inside the institution has bureaucracy, o sea, has bureaucrats or or functionary. How do you say? How do you? Yeah, functionary or something, cultural functionary. You can change everything, but it is not possible, So you can be expelled if you getting hard against the government of if you put difference the ideology points in this case. And it is really important because many, so, 6 generations have been thinking in this in this possibility, in this uh, created a dialogue or controversy with the institution and government, so we can change that. And at the same time, this situation or imaginary around this possibility, I think has created a very conservative people in Cuba. So this other kind of conservative people, no, left conservative people also. So it's really weird, but this is the point. So because people will not understand that it is a totalitarian place. So you have only one party during 60 years. You cannot, get like create a party or association, civic association to do many projects. So it is not legal in Cuba. So this is a very important point. So this is the other thing that maybe in some chapters of the book I think they talk about. We are not talking about human rights. We are talking about a radical change. So we have to go to a democratic country. So it is really important in some of the chapter. They are not talking clear about this, but they are making this theoretical or putting this like a proposal, no, in these discussions. Yeah.
What also is clear is like the Cuban government many times tell us as artists, oh, but you are nobodies, you are not artists, but also you are one or two or three people, and we are many. Now this has completely changed. And this is not only shown here at Documenta, where we brought, I don't know, 100 and some artists, and, plus all the conversations we have here. But also, it is very clear now that the ones that are two or three or four are them. Because even every time they want to do an exhibition, like, it's hard to bring people. But I want to, and maybe you're going to talk about this tomorrow. He's going to do a conversation, a conference. Not this is a conversation, but there's a conference about the functionary, the cultural functionary, and I'm really looking forward to it because he's going to name names. That's quite unusual and very important to do. But one of the things that I remember the Minister of Culture doing at some point when Obama was trying to help and change the relationship and inject some money for entrepreneurs from art, I remember that immediately the Ministry of Culture created this regulation or something where no artist can receive money directly from a foundation. They had to go through the Ministry of Culture. Why? Because they were seeing already that, I don't know, Ford Foundation, all these big American foundations could finance artists. And what they did is they say not only they have to go through the Ministry of Culture, but the Ministry of Culture will create an expert committee to decide if the work is good or not. And if they decide that the work is not good, that money will not go to this artist, but to the artist they decide is good. So you can see how they are really moving all the threads in order to condition creation to servitude, basically, because not even loyalty. And it was interesting because the idea was that some of these foundation has selected artists they want to help. So I think this is some of the examples of. Hopefully, you're going to talk more tomorrow about this that happening in this process. No, yeah.
I believe you mentioned it before, why you changed this, let's say, adjective, like independent. Why you say independent practices for autonomous ones?
Where? Hola, hola.
What nuances do you wanted to highlight with this new change?
No, there are. We are not talking about the difference. We are talking about the relationships between. So, not every independent places created autonomy discursive in relation to the official or political discursive from the government. So this is a point that we were talking before. So if places has, I don't know, Galeria, Taller, Gorria, for example, or some other places that they they want not to create or exhibition or that we can set political art or political exhibition because they have some business. I don't know what kind of business, but they have some business or these kind of places has been created by a VIP Cuban artist or VIP Cuban actor or VIP Cuban musician, so or a restaurant or I don't know, a store or something. So they have some. They want to maintain this kind of well behavior or you know or attitude in relation to this official this discursive. So, and if you go to other places like INSTAR has INSTAR or Movimiento San Isidro, maybe the studio of Italo, a Cuban artist. So you get this different situation. You see that they are they have policemen or political police, or we can say this Cuban security, no, and in front of the house or the other place. So we are talking about this. So, and at the same time, when you teach outside Cuba, so many Cuban academic uh, that get a position at the university, so you have to get some, how do you say, synchronism or something, if we can say, no? Yeah, with these left people from the university, in the United States or Latin America. So you got you have to go in the same left discursive direction, so to get this position to teach outside Cuba, for example, no. So in this way, we are talking about how we can be autonomous in our discussion. No? So how we can discuss about racism in Cuba or feminism in different ways that these people that love Cuba has a paradise. For example, no? This is one of the points about this relationship, or the main point about this relationship uh, around independent practices and autonomy discursive, no?
No, and rightly so, but also another practice that is very common now in Cuba by the government is to create the impression that certain association institutions are independent, where they're really part of the government. They are paid by the government. The guys who are in these organizations sit in the central committee of the Communist Party meetings. Like, they receive the orders of what to do. And we also we encountered this situation we always call independent art, but it's true that it's important to say it's autonomous, and not in the sense of aesthetics, because in art we also talk about autonomous art, but in the sense of having a real separation between what the Minister of Culture wants institutions to do and what artists want to create. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. And any other question? It's good. Alice, good? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. And tomorrow at 5 is his lecture. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much.